to call to order at 5:02, and we'll do a quick. Okay. Should I not follow?
Sorry.
Do a quick roll call. Councilmember Matheson?
Here.
I'm here. Scott Harrington will be late. Did you have a chance to take a look at the minutes?
Very briefly, I didn't
Okay.
see any.
I did, and I didn't see anything, so I'm going to just say we can accept the minutes from last meeting. And we can take a look at our first item, which is the adoption of a job title, Senior Engineering Technician. And this is in regards to our January meeting, where we approved that revised organizational chart.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any questions or comments?
No.
Okay. Is there anything we should know, Greg, in
Uh,
addition to the narrative, which was very helpful?
Not really. I mean, actually, I'll just mention that the Civil Service Commission approved this description or this job description last night. So
Okay.
next step is to bring it forward and assign it to what we're proposing, admin grade A4. It's an existing job description that was updated. It hadn't been filled in 6 or 7 years, probably.
So it's an update.
Right. It's currently not listed in our admin personnel manual on the salary grade structure, so we need to add it there.
Okay. All right. So if there are no further questions, then I move that we put this on the consent agenda because we've already approved the staffing plan, and we had an extensive discussion about the person who would ultimately be perhaps poised to take this position, correct?
Right,
Yeah.
it's been approved as far as it's budgeted and it's in there.
Right.
Once we establish the title as we're looking to do now, then we can go forward and fill it.
Yeah. I don't know if you needed to see, this is what we.
Right.
Last time.
That looks familiar.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay, so I say we move this item to the consent agenda, and move on then to the software this is the Tyler Technologies plan.
Mm-hmm. That's a big decision, I think, that should be still discussed at the council level.
Did you have any questions for Greg or Ginny?
Well, it's, the only thing is that, it's a big change, and it's gonna take a long time to implement, and, if all of the department heads, well, the ones that would be using it are on board, I think it'd be helpful if they, just remind the council what it's all about. It is a lot of money, and it could be a really good deal, or it's a complicated thing.
Yeah, so we'll have another discussion after this one. So what we're looking to take forward to council on Tuesday would just be one piece, like one step in the process. We're still gonna come back probably the next finance meeting with some department heads to, a group of us to explain, here's the different modules and how it's gonna help the city be more efficient in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll go forward to the next council meeting or future one for approving a contract. But for this coming Tuesday, because we have a vacancy in the clerk's office.
I didn't do that last time.
We have a vacancy in the clerk's office, our part-time records retention clerk, so we're proposing, in anticipation of the Tyler implementation, we're gonna need to free up some time for some of our existing employees to spend more time, and obviously they do now, implementing this software. Carrie is an ideal candidate for being our general overall project manager for the project. Each of the departments that are involved, DPW, finance more than anyone, HR, most of the departments, maybe half the city, are gonna spend a lot of time on this, but specifically with the clerk, having Carrie freed up by hiring a temporary full-time administrative specialist in her office will give her the ability to spend some more time focusing on this project, which, like you said, is gonna be a couple of years, really, by the time we get it all implemented. So through civil service, we can temporarily appoint someone to a full-time position for up to 18 months for a special purpose like this. So that's what we're looking to do, is just get council approval right now to modify our clerk office structure. Instead of having a part-timer, we'll have a full-timer on a temporary basis. We would fund that similar to how we would fund Tyler Technology. That would come out of the unrestricted general fund balance, because it's so, I look at the temporary full-time thing as a one-time expense in the sense that it's temporary, just like the implementation cost. So, long story short, what we would like to do is be able to start recruiting for that position and try to find somebody. So in order to do that, we want to make sure the council's on board. I don't know if Carrie or Ginny, if either of you wanted to jump in with anything more than that.
How many departments will be initially involved?
Like the exact rollout and who gets involved when, I'm not sure yet, but there's gonna be finance, HR, the clerk's office, public
What was
works.
the third one?
Clerks, public works, central garage for sure, Judy's, planning department, community development. There's gonna be interconnections with every department. Now, we're not replacing the code office software, but they're gonna be looped in with everything, finance and HR. So really everyone is gonna be touched by this in one way or another, but those ones I listed are most significantly affected, I think.
Just to clarify,
Yep.
because the narrative is quite descriptive and helpful, I just wanna make sure I'm clear. So is this in lieu of the part-time records retention? clerk?
Right, so we're basically temporarily upgrading that
Okay.
part-time position to a full-time position.
Okay, yes. You had
So
that
if we
descriptive, very
if
good.
we come to this fall and we're talking about budgeting for 2026, we're gonna, mention again that we still have this temporarily funded full-time position.
Right.
By the time we get to the end of that period, we'll have another conversation on what happens then.
Yes, okay. So I would be in support of this, but to Don's point, just to kind of give the council an opportunity to learn a bit more, I could move this to a motion on the discussion agenda for us to approve.
Sure.
And it's also, that the money would come from the fund balance, is that right? I think you mentioned that.
The understood.
The net, yeah. Between what we have in the budget currently for the part-time position versus what it may cost us for the full-time. Then the net of that number.
Yeah. So there's already budgeted $37,000 for the part-time position, and then the additional, here, let me give you the additional cost is
Mhm.
estimated to be 81, so the increase from 37 to 81 is 43,000
Mm-hmm.
over the existing
And
budget.
that's contingent upon the personal and family health insurance coverage. So
But that-
if they come in with single
Right.
coverage, it'll be much
It'll
less.
be a lot less, yeah.
But that doesn't include the cost of the software, the hardware.
No, this is just staff support.
Right,
Right,
right. And it's a temporary cost,
right.
18-month position.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so if the council approves this on Tuesday, it's basically just giving us a go-ahead, we're gonna go recruit, try to find somebody, and then, we're not gonna hire somebody in a matter of days. It'll be probably by the time we come back to finance again to ask for approval of the actual Tyler contract, around that time we'll be filling position. So I guess I'm just saying, it's not getting the cart before the horse, it's just kind of planning appropriately.
Yeah.
And then there's another piece of this, I mentioned finance department, they're involved with every department, obviously, we're talking about finance and HR especially. And we know that Ginny's one employee short, so we wanna make sure that we don't overburden her in her office. So we've got some ideas we're working with on that, we don't have a proposal today. But I mentioned in here, and maybe Ginny and Alan, you guys can jump in as well, please, but, we're looking at, is there a way we can partner with the county to get some staff support through them, or possibly through, a firm that would provide contracted support to the finance office to help us with this transition. So we're looking at different options. If you recall, when Alan was talking about the county's experience with their version of Tyler Munis, that he would recommend, if you went back and did it again, to hire a part-time person or, someone who's dedicated to this. So that's what we're trying to accomplish by freeing up Carrie's time a bit, and then we need to still figure something out with finance, but I don't know, Jenny, if you wanted to.
Thank you, Greg. Yes, we're definitely going, we're trying to recruit for an accountant. We, are trying to keep that process going forward. And as you know, right now, Alan is working for us part-time as the deputy finance director. And can I share your? So Alan decided to rerun for county treasurer. So unfortunately, in my viewpoint, he will not be coming on full-time with us. That was my hope. But we also greatly appreciate his continued assistance with us. And he has agreed to stay on part-time with us for as long as possible, depending on, where his career goes, and also, how our office develops. And I just think it's a wonderful partnership to have him on our team, because we can coordinate a lot between the city and the county. And then also Alan had some ideas about a possible partnership between the city and the county, because with Alan's experience of the conversion of already going through Tyler, we brainstormed some ideas as far as having the county be able to help us, and I don't know, Alan, if you want to talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, I can just, so we've been through it, and I just, 8 hours a day with Munis, trying to set something else up that was set up wrong years ago, like, that's why everything's tied together, so I'm like, oh, well, it's gonna take more time than I thought it was one day. But my staff has been through it, so we try to think of ways where my office could help out for a minimal cost, less than what's budgeted, and to save the city money. But with an IMA, it would also give the county revenue, so like the city taxpayers are gonna save money in the budget, the county's gonna save money because the revenue's gonna be coming. So, we had some ideas, we hit some roadblocks, so we're thinking of other ways where my office, my staff, myself, we could help out with this conversion for, a lesser cost than it would cost to just go and do this all at once. Because the county and the city can help each other in a way that they can. Both sets of taxpayers are gonna save money versus you guys keep trying to hire for this and you fall farther behind, or you go out to hire this thing and whereas we can do it cheaper. It's just
And the
working out the.
same taxpayer will benefit twice.
Yes, essentially, yeah. City taxpayers paying county, city are gonna benefit twice on that. So we're trying to, like I said, we've had some ideas, we hit some roadblocks, we're trying to still think of ways that we can make that work.
Would this be a formal contract?
What he meant by IMA is the intermunicipal
sorry,
agreement.
yes.
So, so all of that would come to
Yes.
council for approval.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Once we're able to work out the details, then we would be presenting it to council for consideration.
I mention that because, it's an elected position, and you could have an opponent, and
Oh,
the whole
yeah,
thing would
yeah.
fall apart.
Absolutely, and it could all fall apart, absolutely. If you don't get elected.
Unlikely, but it could happen.
Yeah, and then, maybe, if I don't get the position, maybe I need a job, not need you guys hiring full time. So, yeah, that's kind of, like I said, we'll keep bringing it in, Greg will bring it to council when we have a very solid idea, but that's probably the most cost-efficient way to do it, also with the most knowledge, since my staff has been through it, we just kind of have to.
Yeah, and so Alan and I can coordinate,
Yeah.
and that way I can still be doing the daily operations of the finance office
Yeah.
with assistance from Alan and his team to move the Tyler forward. So basically, we can do an outline saying, this is what we need produced today, and, I can audit it and, see if it was done in the right format and
Yeah.
whatnot, and then we can coordinate.
And how much will this cost this year, if this goes through?
We're not there yet.
That's what, in the end, we are going to structure this so that what's in the city's budget, it doesn't exceed the city's budget. So these are straight numbers. This is just, I have no idea what's in the city, but let's just say it's $150,000. We try to work so that's what's budgeted.
Right.
Do an IMA with the county for $115,000. The city saves $35,000. The county gets an IMA for $115,000. So city taxpayers save $35,000. County taxpayers save $115,000. It's kind of a win-win.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're just making, that we want structures so that nobody's paying more than they should.
Right.
Because if you go out and try to hire a private firm, somebody that's just like, yep, we're gonna come do this, there's no savings and they haven't been through this.
Yeah, they might or not deliver.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
So that's kind of the idea that we're, right, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that.
No, I think that pretty much covered it, yeah.
But for us to successfully do this in the finance office, being short-staffed as we are, we're trying to think of ways to get the support staff.
Yeah.
Alan, could I get your last name?
Ruffles.
Ruffelia.
Yep.
And Alan, A-L-A-N.
A-L-E-N. Yeah.
E-N.
Yeah, A-L-E-N. So, yes, that's kind of,
Yep, the planning.
we're just hoping
Track.
that somehow we can make it so that my staff can help out the best they can, saving everybody money.
Yep,
And already been once.
great. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
No.
Or comments? Okay.
So Scott,
Hi.
Hey.
Just to bring you up, we were just talking about this new, an additional plan for the software to Tyler Technology implementation.
Thank you.
Yep,
We're bringing that to council discussion, so there'll be more discussion on Tuesday.
exactly. I was just gonna say that. This is for the discussion agenda anyway, so, yeah.
I'm late to the party. It's okay with you guys.
and the news is Alan's running for reelection.
I heard that somewhere.
Yeah.
But he's still gonna stay on part-time with us.
Good.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll lock you in the office so you can't go anywhere then.
Yeah, well, that's hopefully with this, like, you'll hear more discussion, but hopefully with this discussion, this is where the county and the city can really
Yeah.
start to come together. and
Plans for
help us
collaboration.
Save everybody money.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So the next item is on this
So this is gonna go to
reserve
council.
fund. Yes. this is a discussion.
Thank you.
Yep. So the next item is for the creation of a new restricted reserve for the airport.
Yes. So, we don't have an airport reserve currently. We'd like to create an airport capital improvement reserve fund, which would be a fund for exactly that, airport capital improvement projects. You'll recall we have an ongoing logging operation in the watershed areas. There's also a couple of properties that are, all the properties say City of Oneonta is as the owner, but we've confirmed, and it was a question for a while,
It's my phone here, just let it go.
okay.
Sorry about that.
That's right. So we've confirmed that there are two parcels, I believe, that are airport parcels. They were purchased using FAA grant money in 1967, and because of that, there's a grant assurance that the FAA requires the city to agree to when it takes that money, that any revenues generated from that.
We can get it for you. and you can-
Oh, okay. I don't need to know what it is. I'm not gonna-
In case they call back.
Oh, that's right. Thank you.
So any revenues generated on the airport, from the airport property, including something like logging, timber sales, which we've gathered $153,952.85 from that logging operation on the airport properties. Those revenues need to stay and somehow be spent on for airport purposes. So what we're proposing, whereas initially we had planned for all of the revenue from timber sales to go into the community landscaping fund, we're gonna take this, recommending we take this $153,000 and change and put that into a new restricted fund for the airport, because we know we have ongoing maintenance and capital improvement projects at the airport. We've talked about those every year. We have one or two. They have typically a 5% local match that varies depending on how much the FAA and New York State DOT are providing, but the city's matches, depending on the project, can be anywhere from $10,000 to $150,000, $300,000 for these bigger projects. Like we've talked in the past about the partial parallel taxiway project that a couple of years ago the city council decided not to proceed with. They were concerned about the expenditure. So having this in reserve, I think, is helpful for the airport to be able to execute some of those projects going forward. So this is really the only way I think that we can utilize this money is for airport purposes.
At the last council meeting, Len Carson said that there would be an announcement possibly coming soon about the airport. Doing this, should we delay it until he has his announcement?
No, I don't think that's related at all.
It's not
Yeah.
relevant?
No, not at this point. I think this would be something that should be done regardless of whatever else may happen with the airport.
So just to kind of tie in, so does the FAA wouldn't necessarily require this kind of fund, correct? This would just
No.
help expedite the kinds of grants potentially that the city could be eligible for. Is that the purpose? one of the
Right.
purposes?
We have operating expenses at the airport and we have capital expenses. So
Mhm.
creating the reserve fund is intended to be spent on capital expenditures, which seems to be the thing, the types of expenditures that the city typically struggles or questions spending its general fund balance on.
Mhm.
Jenny can explain our history of the airport budget. We typically are contributing general fund money to the airport. Jenny, want to jump in?
Last year, I gave council a history report going back to 2012, once we took it over from the airport managers at the time. And I showed all of the expenditures, all the revenues that had come in, and also showed all capital projects and how much grant revenue came in versus how much came from the general fund. And when you look at that detail, the operations would very rarely have surplus during the year.
Mhm.
And usually ran at a deficit. And then when you add the capital contributions that the city made towards, that would just add to the deficit of actually having the airport. However, and I'm gonna just get into the weeds for a minute, we can actually set up a enterprise fund for the airport, but then all of the fixed assets would have to go there. All of, all of the depreciation would have to be recorded. It would be a much larger accounting project to be able to do that. So keeping it within the general fund and setting up the restricted reserve is a much easier way to handle it. Because our airport isn't that big as far as revenues that come in,
Right.
so I don't see the purpose of having to set up the enterprise fund.
Okay. Don, did you have any more questions
No,
or comments?
that's it.
Scott, did you have anything?
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, then I propose we move this just to the consent agenda to be approved. That's good for everybody?
I would recommend, though, that you mention that when you
Sure.
do a summary,
Absolutely.
because Lynn might have something to add.
Okay, so our next item is the fee schedule for historic preservation, chapter 160.
Yeah, so this was tabled by the council at the last council meeting. There were some questions that the council had. We've tried to answer those. One of the main ones was, how do we come up with $100? I'll let Stephen jump in if you'd like, but it says in here,
Yeah.
we
there's
kind of
some
calculated
yeah.
roughly $40 to $60 for legal advertisement in the paper, plus between $40 and $80 for 1 to 2 hours of staff time
Mhm.
between the code enforcement and clerk's offices to process an application. It really depends. I don't know, Steve, if you want to jump in and talk
Yeah, I
anything
mean-
more about that.
Basically, it's just an application fee like any of our other application fees.
Yeah.
Site plan review, if you build a 200 square foot garage in the city of Oneonta, anywhere in the city, you're paying $150 for site plan review. Zoning appeals are $250. I mean, this is just kind of a fee for an application. We actually changed the way the public notices are done on these to reduce the cost. So instead of mailing out postcards to properties within 300 feet, this doesn't require any staff time for that. The applicant prints off a pre-made sign that they post on the door of their building. I mean, so it reduces our need to send mailers out and create postcards. And basically, the cost of this, or the point behind this fee, is to just cover that legal notice and a minimal amount of staff time. Being that this is a new process in the city of Oneonta, we're likely going to create some text changes to the ordinance to reduce applications that are in non-contributing structures. So in our downtown, we have properties that are contributing to the district and then properties that just happen to be within the boundaries. So a small text change would be essentially just to have an administrative review process that wouldn't require non-contributing structures to go in front of the architectural review board. But that would come later. That's going to be an adjustment to the code. But basically what this is doing is just setting an application fee, like all of our other application fees. And I think I included, I think there's like 130 properties or something that are.
115, yeah. I
115.
appreciated that. That was my question at the council meeting. How many would fall under this?
Yeah, we probably, we gave you everything we thought that
Yeah,
anyone on
thank
the
you.
council might want to see. Like Len had asked about understanding the process, so there's a flow chart in the ordinance that we pulled that out, we posted that on the website, and that's
Yep.
included here. There's also a list of each of those properties if you want to see the addresses.
Yeah.
And there's a map.
I
So.
saw that. It's very helpful. It was
And if-
thorough.
And if you look at the flow chart, what I want to note about the flow chart, it looks large and kind of like it has a lot of steps. But that flow chart literally shows from the top to the bottom, from the application to, let's say the Landmarks Commission denies an application, well, what happens then? And so it actually plays out far further than the actual process is. So for example, Community Bank was our first big applicant for some signage. They came to one meeting, the Landmarks Commission reviewed it, by the next month they had a permit. So it was less than the 30-day turnaround, basically, from the night of the meeting to the signed permit being issued. So the same as the site plan review or zoning board review.
Sorry.
So basically the timeline was the same as the site plan review or zoning board review.
I see.
I didn't really have any questions at the meeting, that's why. Yeah,
Flow chart.
yep.
It's
I like
really
flow
nice.
charts.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
No, thank you for all of this material included. It's really actually quite helpful just to kind of get an overview, including the maps.
Yes.
Community Bank's approval for the fence, though, that took like 2 meetings.
Well, that wasn't through this board though.
Mm-hmm.
That was through the zoning board of appeals.
Right.
Okay.
So that application was processed entirely through the ZBA. So yeah, you're right, Don. It actually was quicker to go through this commission than it was through the zoning board of
Mhm.
appeals.
And the second meeting took an hour and 5 minutes.
I know, so there you go. We should just put it in front of this board, it'd go quicker.
Any questions? No?
So we're gonna untable this, or is this just gonna be a new motion, leave the other one
I think we should
tabled
just
to
do
the
a
end?
motion, or just move it, can't we just move it to the consent agenda?
I don't think you can because we tabled it.
Because we tabled it.
I
It was
think we have
a
to
dead
put it in discussion to
motion. All right.
untable it.
So we'll just put it again as a new motion for the discussion agenda.
Good.
Okay, so we have, our next couple of items are contract approvals. So, is there anything, Greg, that we should, there's the.
These are annual contracts, the
Yeah.
next 3, the vehicle fuels,
Right.
propane, other fuels delivered.
Yeah.
We bid these annually. I think they're the same low bidders as last year. 2 of them only had 1 bidder, the other
Yeah.
one had 2 bidders.
Yeah, and you included
Bravado
the
and
one
no
that has
one bought.
2, I think?
What's that?
You included one that has the 2, yeah.
Right, I included the bid now that just shows, so if you want to see
Yeah.
what
Mhm.
the price differences
Yep.
were.
Okay.
Fairly routine.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
put it right on.
Annual, every year.
Annual.
Mhm.
Okay, so we can move those to the consent agenda.
Mhm.
And our next item is about, is a budget adjustment for road salt.
A lot of ice this year.
Certainly
Is it putting it mildly?
Yeah, so obviously, we mentioned this at the last meeting, there were
Yeah.
a couple questions. We have exhausted our budget, and we're requesting a $40,000 transfer from contingency. We haven't dipped into contingency yet for the general fund, it started with $150,000, so this would take 40 out of that. We included, just for reference, in case there are any curiosities, our plow route mapping and salt route mapping as well. And I think the most interesting thing is the history of our salt orders back to 2012. You see that even though we so far have placed
Oh, yeah.
orders for up to 2,100 tons, that still isn't the most that we've used in that period of time. Our budget had been reduced a bit just based on most recent history usage, but of course that has bit us now, so we've got to make a transfer.
Yeah.
Where do we buy the salt from? Is it from that salt mine in Livingston County?
We get it from Cargill.
I'm not sure where they're at, but Cargill is a big salt provider.
My understanding is New York State has the largest salt mine in the U.S.
Rochester, right?
It's, I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's in Livingston County. I've been there, but it was a long, long time ago, so I'm not exactly sure, but it's a gigantic mining operation.
Hmm. Anything to add? It actually is interesting to read about it in terms of, you can obviously get a sense of how weather conditions got a lot better, and now we're kind of
Mhm.
back to 10 years ago.
Chris, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about a little operational change we're going to try out.
So, what we do,
Yeah.
what we have done in the past is for anything under 2.5 inches, we just salt.
Yep.
We don't plow, we just salt, and that uses a lot of salt.
Yeah.
On average, on a regular storm, we use about 100 tons per storm.
Mm-hmm.
So, 2,100 gets us about 21 storms. Plus or minus depending on the severity of the storm, but on average about 100 tons. But, so, instead of just salting, we're gonna put the plows down every time we salt. So, we're gonna push the snow off, and it'll probably create ridges, where parking spaces are. But I think we have to do something to conserve
Yeah.
and get us through the winter, because we are far from over. We can get snow all the way through May,
Yeah.
and I gotta worry about snow for next year in as early as late September. And I gotta get all the way through December, so I hope this is the last time I have to come for a budget adjustment, but there's a possibility I could be back for a budget adjustment in October, November, or April, I don't know.
Yeah. I know.
Mother Nature is against us this year.
Yeah.
Could I ask a question about, I think the town uses like a mixture of salt and sand, is that right?
That is correct.
So what's the difference as far as traction and safety and all of that?
So the primary difference is we have a closed stormwater system, and the town typically does not have open ditches, just like the county do. So what they have to do is, after multiple years of sanding, they have to go through and dig their ditches out. Whereas our closed system, if we use sand, it will clog our storm sewers. And so we cannot use sand with our system because of that. And salt's the way to go with us.
It flows eventually into the river?
It does.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Greg, have there been any other alternatives used in the past before my time?
Not sure if we've done it while I've been here. At one point, there was an alternative. It was actually recycled glass that was used in certain areas. It was ground down, supposedly to the point where it wasn't sharp, but that was met with some public backlash and it didn't last long. There are other alternatives that other places use that I haven't looked into really using here, like molasses-based or beet
Well, I've seen
juice-based
brine.
brines.
Yeah,
brines.
which is salt water, I think, right?
Right, we looked at that, maybe implementing a brine system. There's different equipment you have to get. New York State DOT does that a lot, but we haven't gone in that direction.
Yeah, DOT
What
put
do-
in, go ahead.
No, I didn't.
DOT put in a brine system recently.
Uh-huh.
They actually increased their water usage at their local residency for their brine system. We have talked to them about doing a test, maybe getting our own trucks with a brine sprayer. We were gonna order it, we just decided against it. The brine system is conducive to having long road miles. I mean, DOT's doing a lot, we've only got 40 miles of road that we're taking care of, they're taking thousands of miles. And so, I don't know if it's a system that's really gonna work for us.
I think the main reason that they've been doing it is for environmental reasons, you know, not so much salt into the
Yeah.
wastewater.
Right.
Sure.
I don't know if it's more effective or less effective. You know, it leaves a residue on the roads, and if you like drive in Ulster County, you see it.
You see the lines.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's more of a preparation, it's more of a pre-storm, prep to prevent, you know, ice from gathering on the road itself. So.
What
And the
about-
other thing is that a lot of the drives, our salt usage is the need for the buses to be able to get around. We have we have a bare roads policy. I don't know if it's written, Greg, but I understand we've had a bare road policy
Past
for
practice.
forever in practice, and that's what we shoot for. I mean, I drive an hour away, I drive through multiple townships to get to Oneonta every single day, and I can tell you that our roads are the best from where I ride to here. I mean, I'm driving through rough area, and our roads are the best. I get here and they're cleared,
Yeah.
the snow's melted, they do a very good job. City residents are very lucky with what we have here.
Well, I actually was gonna mention to you a couple weeks ago, that I had a resident want to extend compliments to the DPW because of the clearing so quickly of the road. So there are residents who really appreciate it.
We
And they
appreciate it.
notice, of course.
Good.
Yes,
I'll pass it on to the crew.
yes, please do.
The funny thing is, we get both ends of the spectrum. We have people that are very happy, and we still have people that are unhappy.
Yeah.
And say we still don't do enough. I understand there was an email or a Facebook post that was complaining about 2 hours into our 24-hour storm, or last 24-hour storm, using some expletives and thing, you know, I pay taxes and get the roads cleared. So, can't please everybody.
Yes.
I did not post that. I didn't point at me. I did not.
Well, I was
post
pointing because you told me about it.
I had a quick question about just what other municipalities may be doing. Are they looking into, you know, other alternatives besides salt, or other small cities in upstate?
I
Given
haven't had a discussion
everything.
with other municipalities. I do have a contact that I have been talking with at Batavia. I could have a conversation with them. They are very similar size
Yeah.
to our community, so I could have a conversation with them to see what they're doing.
They get a lot of snow, if I remember,
Lake
they're in the
effect.
lake effect
Yes,
area.
yes.
Yeah.
Rochester.
A lot of what we talked about was quality of life is the expectation. The expectation's always been there that the roads will be bare. You know, I've worked in municipalities where, you know, it starts snowing, they go home at 8 o'clock at night, and they won't come back in until about 4 o'clock in the morning to start plowing. So from 8 till 4, we're out there in a two-wheel drive car trying to do things.
I mean, I live in a town where that's what they do. They stop plowing. The plow goes through one last time right about 6, 7 o'clock, and you won't see them again until the next morning, about 5 a.m. And there could be a 6 or 8 inch snowstorm in that time period.
Do you want to embarrass the town?
No.
Not saying that.
Well, that's a perfect example of the level of service we provide.
That's right.
So,
Exactly.
so if the council decides they don't want that level of service anymore,
Right.
that can change
There's
things.
consequences, right?
But
Effect.
I don't think people realize that we run crews all night to do that, to accomplish that.
Yep.
You know, the state goes on a 12-hour shift, so we don't. We stick with our 10s and then we bring them back in. They're either on overtime or hungover, or we bring them back in. And that's why I try to explain to people, they still have to go home and sleep at some point. I mean, you can't run them 24.
That's true.
I had two people, we had 2 people on call, and if I recall correctly,
Yes,
Jimmy, I don't know if
of
you recall the numbers, but the timesheets we just did for our last snowstorm, they were Saturday and Sunday. I think one person had 16 hours in one day, and, I wanna say it's close to 12 or 16 the next day. So that's a lot in 2 days.
Yeah.
A lot of time on the road, and they're expected to stay in their lane, they're expected not to hit any vehicles. There's a lot of expectation for that amount of hours on the road, and they do a fantastic job, and kudos to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else?
No, I mean, I'm blessed. I live on one of the major thoroughways. I see them coming up and
All
down
the
all the
time,
time, all night. I hear it, I see it.
Yeah.
2 o'clock in the morning, I hear that plow hit, and I'm like, oh, I guess I got to get up and
Yep.
look for work. That's my wake up call for work, so I know what's going on. But no, I mean, I said it before, I keep saying it, our DPW crew, I put them up against anywhere in New York State against anybody. Because I think we by far get one of the best services. So, although I think Chris has them purposely plowing my driveway, because I just get done shoveling and they come back through, so.
Pure coincidence.
If
It's also
okay-
an unwritten past practice policy, sorry.
If it's okay with the committee, I'm gonna recommend we move that to consent,
It's okay.
because it is, I think, a requirement. So our last item is the,
You also might want to mention that one,
sure,
because, you can compliment the,
that's right, that's true.
it's an opportunity.
Tell the broader public, yep, that's right, good opportunity. So the last item is the funding approval for a wastewater collection system infiltration and inflow study.
Judy, you want to jump in?
Okay, so, the city has a speed permit on the wastewater, wastewater system. And in that is a timeline that includes a requirement for us to complete an I&I study, inflow and infiltration study on the collection system, for an engineering report for that, which is due by August 1st, 2026. So EFC, Environmental Facilities Corporation, just came out with their wastewater engineering planning grant. This is a high priority for that planning grant because we do have the speed permit. We can apply for up to $100,000. We have to commit 20% matching funds of the grant amount, so the match will be up to $20,000 coming from the sewer fund. The result of that will be the engineering report, which is the I&I study. It's going to identify issues with our collection system and prioritize lines to be either fixed or replaced. Once we have that, then we will be able to get the replacement or improvement project on the intended use plan and be able to be eligible for more grant funding to actually implement the results of the implementation, or the I&I study, sorry. I don't know, Chris, if you want to talk about what's involved with the study a little bit?
So basically, the study will include, flow monitoring at key points in the sanitary collection system. So, where larger means collect at the same location. There'll be monitoring. There'll be data loggers that they can log the flow to see, where we have increased flow during rain events, and then how long it takes for it to dissipate after the rain event. There may be some smoke testing done to identify where there might be illegal connections. So, illegal connections would include things like downspouts from your rain gutters, sump pumps from basement drains. Those are all illegal. They should not be connected to the sanitary sewer. They should be connected to the storm sewer. And so, when we do this kind of studies, we will find that there are going to be some illegal connections, and we'll have to write letters to the residents or the landowner when we do find a legal connection to make sure that it's disconnected. That'd be something we do in conjunction with the code office.
Match can also be in-kind services as well as paying for costs of consultants required to do this. So we could help pay for some of our time if we find there's enough money in the budget to be able to do that. It's gonna depend on consultant services.
The other thing it's going to find is whether we have cracked sewers or not. So if we have cracked sewers, they'll estimate how many linear feet of sewer main should be either lined, because they can line the sewer line, or replaced.
Didn't we do some lining down on River Street?
We did, yes.
Yeah, so this is gonna be the start of a multi-year approach to address our collection system issues so the first project that actually will be implemented will be taking the highest priority sewer lines to fix them and replace them. So it's replace everything or to line everything, but we're hoping we'll be able to get the worst case ones with the next batch of grant money that we go for. And the grant money available will be dependent upon at the time we apply.
And to give you,
Do we have two sewer systems, storm and sanitary?
so you have a storm sewer system which collects our road drainage, and you have your sanitary collection system that collects everyone's wastewater from their homes or businesses.
So we have both systems, they're separate?
One goes to the wastewater treatment plant for treatment, and then once it's treated, then it is discharged to the Susquehanna River. The other one is just collecting road drainage and discharging it to local tributaries, untreated. One thing I wanted to mention about the INI is.
I have a question about that. When was that done? Because I'm surprised that we have two systems. I didn't know that.
And forever.
Because really?
Yeah.
But it's been forever.
Yeah, the
okay.
city of Oneonta, unlike other cities, some other cities still have combined
Right,
sanitary sewers.
most cities do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oneonta,
that's good.
developed
Many
to not
large
have it.
cities are allowed to do that, but not usually smaller cities aren't.
Okay.
To do that.
One thing I wanted to mention about the INI is our average flow at the wastewater treatment plant is just shy of 2 million gallons a day. We have a rain event, it shoots up to about 8 million gallons a day. So there's a significant amount of INI coming into our wastewater treatment plant during rain events. So it's very important that we get that addressed.
And that's why it's included in our wastewater plant, what Judy said, SPEED's permit, our state pollution discharge elimination system permit. So now it does not allow us to have any bypasses, the violations. So, we're required to do this study, we're required to reduce the INI because otherwise we'll be in violation, and then there could be other penalties that come, eventually from that.
Yep.
So, do you think it goes up during the rain event because of the illegal connections, or because you think we have issues with
I think it's both.
both?
I think it's illegal connections, and I think it's broken sewer lines. And it's not just broken sewer main, it's also sewer laterals that could be broken.
And this study will help with the laterals too, even though they're on private property?
I don't know, Greg, right now the sanitary sewer laterals are the responsibility of the landowner. Landowner's responsible from the home to the sewer main.
No,
Single-
right, I was just wondering, will this help identify those broken?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't ask the question.
Yep, it's okay.
This isn't gonna test to the house, right? It's going to test to where it connects to our system.
Well, if they do smoke testing, again, we haven't decided exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna have to talk with the consulting engineer on what we wanna do. But if they do smoke testing, that'll show leaks in laterals, like literally smoke will rise up out of the soil,
Will smoke come into somebody's house?
possibly, if they're not properly vented.
Right now, the laterals, I don't think we can include in our implementation project, but it's possible, and you correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it's possible we could go for another CDBG grant, Community Development Block Grant, Housing Grant, for our lower income residents to be able to replace them if there's a problem. But the state funding usually isn't allowed to be used on private property unless we have, a permanent easement, which I don't think we would have to do.
Yeah, the only quirk with our system is the sewer lateral in the city right of way all the way to the main is privately owned, and that is problematic for a number of reasons. But that's how it has always been here. It's like that in a lot of places. Oftentimes, you'll find probably, I don't know, you might find that the most infiltration is coming from that connection at the lateral. That's a common place. There's also manhole covers sometimes where it meets the manhole itself can be a source. So there's a lot of different little sources that can add up. If you add that all together, and that's 4 million gallons, and it's equally distributed throughout the city, then it's incredibly expensive. And that's why doing the study helps prioritize, because you can't do everything. But hopefully we'll find some big sources that cut out relatively low costs.
Is the lateral considered where the homeowner taps into the sewer?
Yeah.
So like if you cross the road, they have to take care of it all the way across the road to.
Yeah, unlike the water services where they only own to the back of the curb, and then we take over in the road, they own all the way. Which I'm assuming the thinking there is that that's, they're contributing. That's only their wastewater until it gets to the main. This is how it's been set up in a lot of cities over the years, but problematic.
You'd be surprised the number of conversations I have on a weekly basis with landowners about where the responsibility of water and sewer is. I just had one recently with the quick fill on Chestnut Street.
How often do you hear, I pay taxes, I shouldn't have to do this?
A lot.
I think it's a good study. Because we burned through a lot of chemical. I know
I hadn't thought.
when we were talking last time, we burned through a lot of chemical down there that we shouldn't have to. So,
I think the last time the city did an I&I study was in the nineties, mid-nineties. And there were a number of projects that were worked on over the next 20 years before they were all done that were identified. So it'd be similar, maybe it won't take that long, but it'll be a similar sort of plan, and we'll come up with that from the study.
I mean, if you think about it, pumping 8 million gallons of water,
Yeah.
so electric usage, you know, the blowers, the pumps, you know, the additional electric usage, the chemical usage, there's a lot of additional expense for the I&I to treat it, because it's all coming to the plant. And we can't bypass it, we have to treat it.
sometimes savings has to be, we have to get proactive on something to get it so we can actually lower the bills and okay, I'll get off my soapbox, sorry.
Is this like coming from the state initiative? Like, is this something the state is now focused on?
Well, the
Environmental
Environmental
Facilities,
Corporation
EFC. Yes.
it's not a, it's actually a private corporation that handles, state funding. But this is a combination of EPA, federal level, and the state, water quality protection. And this has been in place, this program has been in place with ESC probably 20 to 30 years.
Okay.
This came up because our speeds permit was renewed. They renew our speeds permit, I think, every 5 years? Is it 3 or 5?
It's 5.
So they evaluate it, and this isn't the only thing that they identify in our speed permit. They changed some of our permit limits, they put in a requirement for creating an industrial user permit program with our large industrial users. So this is just a piece, small piece that they change in our speed permit, and they do that every time they evaluate speed permit is, you know, what contaminants are we concerned with, you know, what impacts the environment, you know, they're always changing the speed permit every time they're renewed. There's always something that changes.
It doesn't get easier to
No.
treat wastewater.
No. I've never experienced on any wastewater treatment plant where they lessened the limits.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Right.
If there still is an EPA. So, I think we should move that to consent unless there's objections to.
That's okay with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Good discussion. Good. Okay. That is our last item for the evening.
Can I ask a couple questions before we go, before we adjourn?
To me or to the?
Probably more towards our DPW
Yes,
director
please.
who's here. So, I know we've been going around looking at sidewalks, I think I've handed you about 30 of them so far. With this winter the way it is, how's this sidewalk budget gonna look?
So I have $40,000 right now budgeted to do sidewalk repairs. We're gonna be doing 88 tiles on River Street because we have to get our CHIPS funding. So 88 tiles and a few other sidewalks will be replaced on River Street when we do from Parish Avenue to the end. So that will come out of CHIPS fund. Those sidewalks will be repaired as CHIP funds. The $40,000, I'll be using a lot of that using Job Corps. I've got them slated for, I just actually spoke with them earlier this week, July and August. So as far as that $40,000 will stretch, and materials, the labor's free, but, you know, the forms, the concrete itself, the 6x6 wire mesh, you know, the curing agent after, you know, all that stuff is the materials that are used to build the sidewalk. So as far as I can get that $40,000 stretch, I'll do as much as I can.
I just was wondering if our damage is up, because I know I've watched a lot of heaving going on, and that seems to be a lot of concerns. But-
There's a lot of sidewalk out there. We have, again, 40 miles of roadway, and a good majority of them have sidewalk on both sides of the road, so it's a lot of sidewalk to keep track of, and there's varying grades of sidewalk condition. One thing I'm actually considering to discuss at some point is, you know, we did the street scan, did the evaluation of our roadways. I want to do something similar with our sidewalks. The company that did the street scan for us does something similar for sidewalks, and I'd like to do that so I can prioritize sidewalk repairs. But that's something to consider for the 2026 budget.
Who owns the sidewalks?
We do.
The city owns the sidewalks.
And then the homeowner has to take clear of the snow.
So this, it's on city property,
It's within the city right away.
city right of way.
And I know like one thing, I don't think people realize it, but I know one thing that I saw you do, because you did it in front of my house, was when you got drainage issues, the first thing you do is knock down the bank. Where over the years, the dirt comes up, so the water can't escape, and it actually does a lot of, works really efficiently to take care of a lot of those issues, so. I've been preaching that to the homeowners too, so I'm sure your DPS website will start, or email will start coming. But
I haven't had my full evaluation of sidewalks for this year, but, you know, I would do more sidewalk repairs on River Street. I'd like to do sidewalk repair over the arterial on Main Street, because that's in really bad condition on the railroad. We were talking about doing sidewalk repair on, in front of MBT on Chestnut Street. That's in really bad shape. And there are some sidewalks, some of the roadways between Church Street and West Main Street are in really bad shape. Think about doing some of those. Those are the high priority ones I'm thinking about doing this year.
So, if the sidewalks are on private property, but the city has the responsibility for maintaining them, could we change that? Say that it's up to the property owner?
Well, they're not on private property, they're within the right of way, which, you know.
Is a right of way doesn't
The
mean
public
that we
street.
own it.
It's not ownership per se, but it's not private property either necessarily. Dave Merzick could explain that a little better. It gets a little tricky sometimes, but there are cities that have, their code says that sidewalks are the responsibility, replacement is the responsibility of private property owners. And then there are places that have matching funding, grant programs. Maybe if a homeowner wants to replace their sidewalk that they're responsible for, the city might match that 50%. There's all different scenarios out there. City of Oneonta has always been owned by the city and replaced by the city. Think about it, I think it makes sense that if the city is providing transportation, we shouldn't just maintain the roads for cars, we should maintain the sidewalks for people walking as well, to the same degree, but it is a cost. We have to
The
budget
reason I
for it.
mention it is when I owned a house in Brooklyn, I was responsible for maintaining the sidewalks, and the city only maintained the curb. And I had to replace the sidewalk at my own expense, you know.
Were the sidewalks very nice in your
I
neighborhood?
don't know. I'm not really sure that's anything I'd want to take on. I think it's better off that we maintain it as a city.
Okay.
Because we're
Well,
trying to, we want people to walk, and we want to.
Yeah, well, if you didn't maintain it, you got fined and you had to, or
But you can have-
the city could
Right,
come
but you
in
can have
and
people that
replace
can't
it and
afford
you
to
pay
do
it.
it.
They
That's
have
the
to pay
thing,
it.
concrete's pretty expensive,
Mhm.
you know.
It was just a way of having good sidewalks where the city didn't have to pay for it.
But
The
you have to
property owner did.
pay someone to then monitor and enforce if there is a violation.
Yeah.
So there is an expense.
And then you're
Well,
putting
that-
more work on our codes department that we,
Mhm.
in our
And where I was
ordinance.
from, there was an optional, like the homeowner, instead of having to wait for a schedule, could opt to replace their own sidewalk at their cost if they did it to the city spec.
Mhm.
Because the city was basically like, we're never gonna get your house, so, like, we have so much sidewalk, like, you know, take a number, it'll be 4 years.
Yeah, really.
I mean, that was, yeah, so that was the solution of, you could go to the city, get their specs, have it, you could do it, and then, they would do the inspections.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. And they had preferred, they had a list of contractors that,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah, that's what we had.
yeah.
But city they didn't force you to do it, it was an optional thing, or you could just wait
So I had to
40
do it.
years until they fixed it.
Well, I had, the choice was, in my case, was, you do it or the city will do it and they'll charge you more.
I'm sure the city wouldn't look the opposite way if somebody wanted to donate a sidewalk in front of them and it was on the city specs, so.
Well, Alan just asked an interesting question. So when you lived in Brooklyn, were you liable for anybody getting hurt on your side?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I would tell you that without Job Corps, it would be much more expensive to do sidewalk repairs, because there are some sidewalks that Job Corps won't do because of traffic, like they won't do the arterial, they won't do like MBT, because they're students, they're learning to build sidewalks, so I'm gonna have to bid those out, and the cost to do those sidewalks are excessively, much more expensive than if it was to have Job Corps do what they do for us.
Yeah, the NBT, I walk on that sidewalk almost every day, and it's, well, they did get, it was patched recently, which is good.
Our sidewalk budget, annual sidewalk budget funded from the general fund was $150,000 to $200,000 in 2010 when I started. And it, you know, through trying to find savings and you know, not spend too much money, we've been at $40,000, $50,000 max for a good 10 years now.
I
So
could
it's been-
easily spend 200,000 a year in sidewalks, easily.
And we're getting ready to add even more concrete in the way of sidewalks
I mean,
when you do Lettuce Highway.
really, I mean, it's what budget do you guys wanna make it,
Yep.
you know?
So I think that generates a bigger question for the future, like where the investments, it goes back to what services do we wanna provide and to what level can we provide them and should we provide them, and, you know, I mean, I don't know,
Yes.
I think they'll be having that discussion about 120 years from now too, like, you know. They'll go back to history and be like, well, you know. So, no, thanks, I appreciate it. I just know that it's been like a harsh winter this year and,
Rough on the roads.
Did you have any more questions?
I did, but I don't remember what it was.
Okay.
Just can't be that important.
All right. Don, did you have any
No,
comments? Okay. You good?
yeah.
Okay. So then I move to adjourn at 6:05.